Why are furries so gay?
Hi everyone, it's Marka here. Bear with me for a quick sponsor break. Did you know that all of this YouTube channel, all of my TikTok, Instagram, my entire existence online is entirely self-funded? To help fund myself and my endeavors both in art and just online, I sell and make a variety of products. If you'd like to support me, you can check out my website at queenmockabun.squarespace, where I sell all of my products, including mug rugs, stickers, jewelry, and so much more. If you'd like to see behind the scenes and get some awesome perks, I also do have a Patreon. My Patreon does offer things like a monthly sticker club as well. But if you're not in a position to financially support me, that's totally okay. There is no pressure whatsoever. But if you would like to still support me, chuck us a follow us on Instagram, TikTok, any of our other socials. Just remember to interact, and that is enough as it is, and I am so grateful to everyone who follows me and who interacts with my content. You are genuinely the best. But that's enough from me. Back to the video.
Spent any amount of time in the fandom, or if you've just kind of looked at the fandom from the outside, you've probably noticed that a lot of furries are, well, gay. Now, I'm using the term gay or queer to refer to anyone in the LGBTQI+ community, so that includes people who are on the asexual spectrum, such as myself, on the aromantic spectrum, trans people, non-binary people. I just say the term gay just as an overarching term to describe anyone who is in the queer community. But if you've looked at the furry community, I'm sure you've noticed there are a lot of queer people. In fact, it's probably the majority of things that you see in the furry community are queer people, well, talking about their experiences or talking about how they're queer or making queer artwork. And you may have wondered, well, why? Why is this community focused around anthropomorphic animals so queer and have such a large proportion of queer people in it? Now, I've spoken about in my last few videos about how the furry fandom is so focused on this idea of self-expression. Yes, the fandom came about as a group of people who had an similar interest in anthropomorphic animals, especially in the 90s when that was such a big thing in animation studios, but it slowly developed into a way that people could express who they were without any fear of judgment. Now, this meant from everything from aesthetics to who they were to interests, literally every aspect of their personality they could express without having to worry about any backlash or any judgment from the people around them. And so they built this community that was super open and super open to people being different, people being weird. And very early on, this kind of cut them off in a way, because ultimately the wider public doesn't tend to like people who are different or weird. But the furry community was all about that. It was so focused on being different, on being weird, on just being yourself. So what happened was you had this group that developed who was very open to people who were being judged or looked down upon by general society. Now, a little bit about the history of furries is they haven't really been around that long. They've been around since the 80s or 90s. It kind of popped off in the 90s and early 2000s, around the time where kind of being homophobic was the norm, where that was totally okay. It wasn't really looked down upon that much, even if it was just in the terms of making idle jokes or making, kind of backhanded comments about people. No one was going to be called out or judged for making those inappropriate remarks. And the furries were this community who didn't care. They didn't care if you were weird. They didn't care if you were different. And so it started to attract a lot of people who were looked down upon by normal society. So what ends up happening, and this has happened in other communities as well, is you have this community who is so focused on being different, and you inevitably attract people who are shoved out by normal society because they find comfort and solace in that community, because they know in that community they can be who they are. They can be who they want to be without any judgment, without any fear. So what's ended up happening is essentially the furry community made a community that was a safe space and began to attract a lot of queer people, because queer people knew that they could be in this community and express themselves and express who they are without the fear of judgment, without being pushed out. And the other thing is as well, because of around the time that the furry community kind of began to spread and become what it is today, having more traditional forms of expression in terms of queer relationship, e.g. relationships between two people, weren't really that common to see in media. And quite often, if they were two humans together, you would get a lot of side eyes and a lot of weird look. But if you did it in a different form, like through furries or through anime, it was a little bit more okay because those were already kind of weird subjects, so people didn't really look down upon it as much because they went, oh well, that's anime, that's already weird, so that's fine. So you have a community who doesn't care if you're queer, who's so focused around art, and who you can make art of yourself and your partner or just queer art in general without people looking at you being weird because you're already part of a weird community. So it kind of was an accident in a way. A group of people ended up making a community about their love of primarily animation, and what's resulted is a safe space for primarily queer people. Now, not everyone in the community is queer. I myself know many people who are not queer, but there is a large chunk of people who are queer in some aspect of their identity. And I think the reason why in today's fandom there are so many queer people still is because it is still a safe space to express yourself. We've moved on a lot from what society was like back in the 90s and early 2000s, but there's still a lot of backlash from being queer, especially in a lot of public spaces. So the furry fandom has still stood as a place that you could be yourself without fear of judgment or backlash. And as a result, you have ended up with a really massive queer population, and honestly, I love it because it's become so normalized to the point that oftentimes it doesn't even matter. And as a queer person, sometimes it's really nice to just be in a space where you don't have to mention that you're queer, you don't have to bring it up, you don't have to justify yourself, that you can just be you and leave that sort of stuff behind and not have to worry about any of it. It's a really nice feeling to just be able to relax and not think about that sort of stuff sometimes. And it's part of the reason why I love the community so much. And I do love the community because they are so open, that I've seen so many people support each other when someone's come out or is unsure, and they're honestly amazing. And I think it's just kind of become a refuge for people, and I love the fact that the furry fandom has welcomed them with open arms. And I think the fact that the furry fandom is so focused on art has allowed people to not only express themselves in things like fursuits, but through traditional and digital art as well, through other means. And it was just a way to do that without having so much judgment. And even in today's art landscape, you will see a lot of queer furry art, and I love it. And I think it's just a way that people feel comfortable in expressing themselves, knowing furries are already kind of weird. People aren't really going to shame someone for making queer furry art as much as they might shame them for making generic furry art, as they are for making generic queer art. Because if it's more normal, it's going to go to a wider audience who are going to judge them. But if it's a furry or something like that, it's a lot more normal, and the people it's going to get to, the people who are going to see it, are a lot more open, and so people don't have to worry as much. And it's just something that I genuinely love. I know people get a lot of flack and people make a lot of jokes about it, and it is a little bit of a meme-y thing in the community where, the majority of people are gay men, but it's something that I genuinely love. It's a great way to be in a queer space without that being the focus of the space. It's a great way to express yourself in any way, and they're so open. It's not exclusive to queer people. There are plenty of straight people. There are people who, maybe aren't straight but don't identify under a queer label. There's so many different types of people that it's genuinely something that I just love so, so much. I genuinely cannot express how much I love the fandom and how much it's allowed me to grow and explore my identity because the fandom is so gay. But it ultimately just boils down to furries are gay because it's a community. It's a community that is safe for people to be themselves. And of course it is going to draw people who aren't safe in in normal society. And it's something that I really admire about the fandom, that we don't care, that we are so accepting and loving. But let me know down below, why do you think furries are gay? Do you have anything that maybe I missed? Don't forget to chuck us a follow. Let me know what you think about the fursuit. I'm trialing being in fursuit for a couple of videos just to see kind of how they go. It is a little bit difficult for me because it's hot. I live in Australia. But if you guys prefer the fursuit, then maybe I'll consider continuing doing videos in suit. But chuck us a follow. I love you all, and I'll see you in the next one.